Okay, now we'll see some hands-on session on exception handling. So in Java, for handling exception, we use try block, and we use catch statement. Then we'll write something about finally, right? So these are all three major keywords for handling exception in Java. Apart from that, we have a throw keyword as well as throws keyword, right? So in our previous session, we discussed about the usage of all these exception handling keywords. Now we will see the demonstration. We will see the simple demonstration on working with these blocks in Java. So now I'm going to create a simple class handling exception. So here I would like to have a main method, and inside a main, so in exception handling there are two kinds of exception types are there in Java. One is a checked exception type, another one is an unchecked exception type. For unchecked exception, as a developer you don't need to handle it inside your code, because your runtime system will handle it. And for checked exception type, you should handle with the help of try and catch. We will see the demonstration of both checked and unchecked. So we will start with checked exception. So I'm going to have a try statement, and I'm going to have a catch block. So inside your try statement, you will be attaching a certain code that may raise a checked exception type over here. So here I'm going to work with a file. So we are importing I'm creating a file, input.txt. So this is for creating an object for the given file, and if you want to read a data, you will go with file input stream. So here we are trying to read a data from a given file. So here I have to add an import statement for this. So this is a simple example for so for the given catch block. So I'm simply handling file not found exception, and for printing exception we will go with print stack trace. We discussed about this. We discussed about print stack trace in the previous sessions, right? Now I'm going to run this file. So here we have a try block for reading an input file, and I have a catch block for handling the file not found exception. Now we'll look at the output. So here we have mentioned input.txt file. So the input.txt file should be there in the same location of our Java file for the given case. So the file we haven't created it. So you are getting a runtime error which says that file not found exception, right? So the file not found exception is a checked exception type. So as a developer, you should handle it. Otherwise, you will get compile time error itself, right? So now if you would like to add a finally block, so that is also possible. So in the same code, I'm attaching finally block. So in finally block, we'll be attaching with a try and catch, or you can attach it with a try also. Whether an exception raise or not, the set of statements which are part of finally will be definitely executed. So here I'm simply adding a print statement. So this is the end of exception. So here I'm going to run the same code. So for the given case, so here we are getting file not found exception, and finally block is also getting executed, right? So this is a part of an finally block. Apart from that, so inside this try block, um, the exception is thrown automatically. Apart from that, if you want, you can throw manually also. So if you want to throw it manually, you can use the keyword throw. So we'll see then another example which is going to demonstrate the usage of throw keyword in user defined exception. We'll discuss about it. So I'm going to create a separate class that is invalid age, right? So far we discussed about try, catch and finally, and for demonstrating throws and throws, better I will go with user defined exception. So in user defined exception, it is a special way of creating our own exception in Java. So in Java we have a set of predefined exception classes are there. Apart from that, if you want, you can have your own application specific exception in Java. So if you want to create user defined exception, you have to create a class. So that should be your first process. Then you have to extend exception class, right? So here you are extending exception class, because exception class is a part of a predefined exception hierarchy. So you are creating a child class for exception so that your class can act as another exception class in Java. So we are extending exception class, and ensure that you are overriding toString method in Java. So now we are going to override the toString. So these are three major steps you have to consider for creating user defined exception in Java. Now we'll see the demonstration of how we are creating it. So I have created a class invalid Java. So in the first step, I have to extends with exception class. So this is the second step. So we have created a class, and the second step we are extending the exception class. So this is how we create user defined exception. The next part, you have to override the toString method. So here I'm going to perform overriding of toString. So with the help of Eclipse IDE, I'm going to generate toString. So here I have generated toString, and I'm removing all the predefined statements which are part of a toString. So inside toString, you have to have a description about your exception type. So here I'm going to return the description about your exception. So here age is invalid. So this is a description. I am attaching it over here. So this is your simple user defined exception class, which is specific to that of your application. So here we are simply describing age is invalid, and now we'll see how to handle it inside your actual application, right? So now I'm going to create one more class, so which is going to be my main class. So I'm going to name it as user demo, and inside user demo I'm going to have a main method, and inside the main method I'm going to attach a try block. So either you can have a combination of try with catch, or you can have a combination of try with finally. So here I'm going with the try with the catch, right? So inside the try, I'm going to check, I'm going to get a number. If it is less than 18, I'm going to display invalid age. If it is greater than 18, I'm going to display valid age, right? So I'm going to read a data from the user. So I'm going to have an object for scanner. So scanner class in Java allows you to read input from keyboard. So for scanner class, it is part of an util package. So you have to import util. Now I'm going to read a number. So integer age equal to s dot next int. So this is going to read a number from the user, and we are going to check if the number is, if it is less than 18, then we are going to throw an exception. So here, based on the input data, as a developer you have to manually throw your exception type, because all the user defined exception should be manually thrown. It won't be involved, it won't be thrown automatically. So if the age is less than 18, I'm going to throw it manually. So I'm going to use a keyword throw, and after throw you have to provide an instance of your exception. So here I'm going to create an instance that is invalid age. So invalid age is my class name. So invalid age is a class I have created. So I'm passing an instance of an invalid age, and inside the catch block I have to handle invalid age exception, and here I'm going to attach print stack trace for displaying some meaningful information about your exception, right? So whenever we have our own exception class in Java, ensure that you are throwing it manually with the help of throw keyword. Now we'll try to run the code. So I'm going to execute the code. So I'm going to give the data 12. So 12, you are getting it as age is invalid, and the exception is being thrown at line number 10 of userdemo.java. If you click it on over here, it will take you to your actual Java code where you have to look at. So in this line, an exception is being thrown so that during debugging, the print stack trace method will helps you to look at the actual location of the error so that you can debug it in a better way. So this is how we create a user-defined exception in Java. So for in creating user-defined exception classes, what we have done here is we have simply overridden a toString method. So this is one way. Otherwise, you can do the same task in one more way also. So in that case, you can have a parameter, you can have a constructor, right? So here I'm creating a constructor for the given class, and here I can simply pass superoff. So inside superoff, I can attach age is invalid. So this is another way of creating exception class in Java. So in this class, what we have done, so we have an exception class invalid age, and inside that we have a constructor, and inside the constructor we are using superoff. So superoff, in the sense, what is the purpose of superoff? Superoff will simply invoke the constructor of the parent class. So this is going to invoke the constructor of exception, and we are passing in our own description of the exception. So this will be printed. So now we'll look at this. Now we'll try to execute the same code, and we'll look at the output, right? So now I'm going to run the same code, and I'm going to give the value 13, and here you are getting invalid age. So invalid age is a class name, and age is invalid as a description as we have created, and from line number 10 the exception is being thrown, right? So for creating user-defined exception classes, either you can override toString method, or you can create a constructor for handling the constructor with the super. Okay, that you can simply have a constructor. Inside the constructor, you have to use a keyword super with the superoff statement, right? So either you can follow with the overriding toString method, or you can go with the creating a constructor with the superoff statement. So you can follow any one of this way for creating user-defined exception class in Java, right? So now we'll come back to throws keyword. So what is the purpose of throws keyword, right? So I'm going to have a separate I'm going to create another class so that you can understand it in a better way. So for throws demo, I'm going to create separate class throws demo, and here I'm going to have a method public display. So I have a display method, then I have a main method, and inside the main method I'm going to uh, I'm going to read a data. So I'm going to read as the age from the user. So new scanner, and here I'm going to attach system.in. So system.in is going to it's going to read a data from your keyboard. So now I'm going to read a number. So integer age equal to s dot next int. Right now I'm going to invoke the display method, so better I will put it as a static. So if it is static, I can invoke it without so if it is static, I can invoke the method without creating an object for it. So now I'm going to invoke the method display, and I'm going to pass age as an argument, right? So what will happen? So here we are reading the age and we are passing it over here. So inside that, I want to check whether if it is less than or 18 or not. So in this if statement, so I'm going to check the value of age. So if age is less than 18, so we are going to raise an exception. So throw new, so invalid age, right? So we are manually throwing it. So here we are throwing an exception, right? So what you can do over here is, whenever you throw an error, ensure that you are handling the exception in the same place itself. So for example, either you can handle the throw statement with the help of try and catch, right? Either you can have try and catch over here. So here you have to attach invalid age IA. So this is the way we have so far we have discussed, right? So here what we have done, so inside the display method, you are getting a runtime error, and we are trying to handle the error inside the same method itself. So inside the same method, we are handling try and catch. Now I'm going to run the file. So here I'm going to pass a value 15, and you are getting age is invalid. Everything is fine, right? Now, if you decide that you don't need to handle the exception in the method, either you can handle the exception in method invocation. In that case, so here you have handled the exception over here. Otherwise, you can handle the exception here also, right? In that case, you can remove your try and block statements. So here we are removing try and block, and here we are adding throws of exception. So throws of invalid age. So in that case, what happens is, so inside this method, an exception is being thrown, but as a developer, you don't want to handle it over there. So you are simply throwing it to the method invocation line, so, right? So in this line, this particular exception may be thrown, right? In that case, here you can attach your try and catch block. So this is the speciality of throws keyword in Java. So either here you can handle invalid age, right? So instead of handling the exception over here, you are handling the exception at the line of method invocation.